Hello and welcome to the fifth edition of the Goa Arts and Literary Festival. I have with me Sagarika Ghose, who's been an Indian journalist since 1991, working with print and TV. So your experience in print, you started with print in Times of India and the other great publishing dailies. So what do you have to say about that?
I started my journalistic career in 1991 with the Times of India. Journalism was very, very different in those days. There was no such thing as media, it was all journalism. We were working on landlines. We used to make pages out of bromides. There were no computers. We used to fire pages from the presses. You know, it was all manual. Cut and paste was the way we made pages. That was in 1991, and I think have been privileged to see a complete change in the way journalism and media is done at the moment. And in a way, life comes full circle, because I started in 1991 in the Times of India, and now I am also a consulting editor in the Times of India today, 25 years later. The way the Times of India, for example, has changed completely from a very old-fashioned company. Bennett Coleman company was very old-fashioned. The journalists were heavily unionized. Now it's a highly marketing-driven, highly technological, very modern company. And I think that's how journalism has changed. I think the advent of television, the advent of social media has completely altered the journalism scene. Television to me has been the most important development in journalism. When I switched to television, I was impressed by just how vibrant it was, how dynamic it was. So many young people were involved, and it brought a certain democratization and a certain dynamism to the news. I mean, you cannot escape 24/7 media today. There's no place to hide. Politicians cannot get away with saying the kind of things they used to say earlier. Now they will be captured on media. A riot cannot be ignored anymore. You know, the 1984 Delhi riots were not on television. There was no television media in those days. In 1984, I was in school. I was in first year college. But the 2002 Gujarat riots, you can see the huge difference that it made by the fact that they were covered on TV. So TV, I think, has brought an immediacy to the news. 24/7 news just brings the news right to your doorstep. Politicians are talking to you right in your bedroom. So the immediacy and the connect and the communication you now have with politicians is just radically different from what it was 20 years ago. So I think television has transformed politics in a way. Television has transformed so many public processes. Television has transformed the justice system. You now have trial by media, whether it's the Jessica Lal case, whether it's the Priyadarshini Mattu case. Now, there are good things and bad things about this. You know, television is an amoral technology. It's a technology. It can be used for good. It can be used also for the bad and to sensationalize. So there's no getting away from the media now. Arun Jaitley, the present Union Finance Minister, once called India a made-in-media society. And in that sense, I think Indian media is increasingly being made, Indian public life, in a way, is being made by the media. You know, the media is shaping perception. Media is even shaping reality. Media is shaping politics. So creating propaganda. So as I say, it's good and bad. The problems before the media at the moment, as I said earlier, are threefold: corporatization, politicization, sensationalization. These are the three problems that exist for the Indian media. Today, I think the Indian media is supine. Its back is bent. It is crawling before the powerful. It is completely non-independent. It is non-questioning. It has elevated politicians into demigods. It has completely surrendered the questioning, independent space that media and journalism should have. So, you know, this is where I feel it's been goodbye journalism, hello media. In our time, it was journalism. Now it's media. So now it's a lot more glitzy, it's a lot more glamorous, it's a lot more technological, but is it journalistic? That's the issue.
No, so like earlier you've been in print and then you've gone to media, like you said. and now you're back in print. So what really makes you, even at the current period of things and the way things are working in the journalistic world, what do you think is more real to journalism? Is it the print or the media? Because media is, it's a competitive field. Every channel is trying to compete with the other, and maybe that's why in the
It's owned by businessmen. The television media is owned by big business houses, and those big business houses have their own agendas. So unless there is independently owned television media in India, which is independently funded, you're not going to be able to produce independent journalism, or journalism that is totally autonomous, or where editors are totally autonomous. So that's the issue, I think, with television media, because the money you require for television is huge. It's astronomical. I mean, you require lakhs of rupees just to stage a show. For a 3-camera show that you see that we all do, you think we're just sitting there and doing a show, and this is someone dancing around in front of, the Dal Lake or in front of the Mandovi River. But it's costing lakhs of rupees to stage that. You have cameramen, you have audio equipment, you have OB vans, you have, logistics. It's costing a huge amount of money. So the people with the deep pockets to create that kind of money and to generate that kind of revenue are inevitably going to be big business people. And they have their own agenda. So that's the big problem. To me, this model is doomed, actually. The television journalism, television media in India is doomed unless the business model changes.
So now on a lighter note, let's go to the 2 novels that you've written. 198, which is The Chin Drinkers, and the one in 2004, which was Blind Faith. Both fiction. Was it like an escape from reality? Because, working for 25 years in a journalistic field, reporting facts, it gets kind of tiring, right?
Yeah, I mean, one thing you learn when you're a journalist is you come across the most amazing situations. You come across the most incredible people. There is no profession like journalism. I know that even if television media is doomed, there is print media, there is independent media, and I would encourage everybody to go into journalism because it's a wonderfully exciting profession. You meet a range of people, from godmen to gurus to goons to militants to mafia dons, some of them are very nice people, as I realized. You just meet a whole range of people. You are also in a range of situations. You can go in the Kumbh Mela, you can be in a riot, you can be in a war zone, you can be in a crowded situation that spins out of control, you can also be in very civilized situations. So you really get a slice of life in the way that I think no other profession gives you. And I think that is excellent raw material for fiction. And that's why I often felt that, I'm just putting out a story and this is just one little dispatch I'm writing of 500 words, or I'm doing a little report, but there's so much more I could say about this. And so that's why what prompted me to write both my books was basically the experiences I had as a journalist.
And actually earlier with Mustan sir, he said the same thing, that the best writers are the one who do the research well, and research well on real facts, and then you can write a good fiction on it. So, I mean, like you've said, that journalism is still a very vibrant career, and in your 25 years of still ongoing career, what would you say is like a highlighting moment?
There are many highlights. There are many situations I've been in which were wonderful. I think covering elections is a particularly high moment. I mean, you really get to see Indian democracy in action. You really get to see the whole voting process and how people vote, and how people sort of actually line up to come and cast their franchise. This election, I had a wonderful experience because I did a series of 32 programs. Every one was from a different city, and the program was called Open Mic on CNN IBN, and we went to many different cities and recorded Vox Box, recorded people's voices, what we call Vox Pops. There were people's voices, and they were amazing, those programs, because we kept them raw and uncut, and they were not edited. So some of them were even riot situations, where people were sort of really coming to blows, and but it was an incredible eye-opener into what people were thinking, and the anger out there, and the kind of communal polarization also out there. And the kind of tensions that exist between castes, between religions, because we kept it all raw and uncut. So the Open Mic series that we did on CNN IBN was certainly a highlight of my experience.
And like you've said about the raw cut scenes which you've recorded for that series, there's a lot of censorship that goes on in TV, and it's needed because like it's a medium in which everyone is audience to it. So I mean, don't you think there are times in which TV, like news channels, should not have censors? Like they should not hide, like they conceal a lot of things. So what do you have your opinion on that?
I don't think news channels should censor. I don't think there is any need for censorship. I think as far as we are concerned, we abide by the, at least we used to in CNN IBN abide by the BBC's rules on what we can and cannot broadcast. So there are certain guidelines on broadcasting norms, but censoring in terms of political opinion or censoring in terms of freedom of speech issues, certainly I don't think there should be any censorship there, which is probably why I had to resign from that job.
No, there have been recent cases in the last decade or so. A lot of online journalists and print media journalists who have been jailed or imprisoned by the regional and government parties when they've written against them. So, what would you have to say about that?
The journalists today are scared. The government has enormous power. It has the power to control advertising. It's not just the central government, it's the state governments around India, which are extremely dictatorial as far as the media is concerned. Politicians can be extremely vindictive. They can use all kinds of means to silence you, to get you sacked, to marginalize you, to get you to sort of stop saying the kind of things you're saying. So it's very, very difficult to stand up to the political establishment because they're very powerful. And the only way you can do it is if the media stands up and shows its spirit and shows some balls. Right now, it's not doing it at all. Right now, right, you'll have to censor that. Right now, the media is crawling. I think we have a timid, crawling, spineless media right now. And unless this media wakes up, it'll only have itself to blame.
And so, what do you think the Arts and Literature Festival will do for this? I mean, what can they do? Maybe write books which might motivate people to do something?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have these forums because I think in these kind of spaces you can ventilate your views. I think people can speak freely. I think people can express themselves freely without it becoming hate speak and without it becoming a sort of attack on anyone or kind of prejudicial attacks on anyone, because what's happening is a lot of free speech is being interpreted as hate speak, and that should not be. So in a literary festival or an arts festival, you always have a civilized level of discourse. But I think you have democratic disagreement, which I think is very, very important. And the mainstream media is now outdoing itself to bend before the government of the day. So whichever government it is, whether it's Mr. Modi's government, whether it's Mr. Manmohan Singh's government, the mainstream media is always bending. So when you have a media that is bent, I think these other spaces that are opening up, I think are very important to ventilate views and to ventilate freedom of speech and to have democratic discourse in a spirit of civilized exchange of views.
And so far in the Arts and Literary Festival, do you think that there was any kind of censorship or restriction of speech?
No, there wasn't. In fact, yes, last night we had a very interesting discussion on the rise of communalism and the rise of majoritarianism, and a lot of people spoke very openly, and it was quite a healthy exchange of views. But of course, the time constraint was such, so that we had to stop. Maybe that was the censorship. That we ran out of time. But no, it was a very open discussion. And actually, you can say things in Goa that you can't really say anywhere else, which is one good thing.
So I think I'll thank you for the time here. And you were here at the 5th edition of the Goa Arts and Literature Festival 2014. Thank you.